As haunted house fever swept the nation throughout the 1990s, one business wanted to not only become a staple of the haunt industry, but sought to become the most prolific haunted attraction ever constructed. And, hailed as the number one scariest haunted house in America, it seems like they are well on their way. This is the story of Netherworld, a house with a humble beginning that has risen to become one of the greatest of all time. This week on HauntSeason. Netherworld began in 1997 as the creation of a ramshackle group of artists and craftsmen with extensive backgrounds in film and TV production and a working knowledge of the haunt industry via connections with Atlanta's Chamber of Terrors and the national haunt franchise Silo X. At the time Netherworld was being imagined, it was common for most haunts to be loosely based on already established horror film properties. But Netherworld wanted to do something different. They wanted to create their haunt based on completely original ideas. And, more than this, they wanted to create a house that was highly detailed and had deep theming, something that was not the norm 20 years ago. After creating a successful preview haunted house at DragonCon, the first Netherworld was opened in Kennesaw, Georgia. Construction took a little over a month, and the house opened in time for the 1997 Halloween season. It was a massive success. Not only had they survived, but against all odds, Netherworld had flourished. 1998 saw Netherworld move to a strip mall location, the Antique Center in Norcross, Georgia. Here, the team had hoped to have enough space to amp up the scares and build two separate haunts. One, a traditional supernatural haunt, and the other, a science fiction style haunt called Vault 13. But upon starting construction and realizing that they didn't have the space for two haunts, the theme changed completely. Scrambling for ideas, Netherworld made contact with a role-playing company, White Wolf, who had famously created a game called Vampire the Masquerade, and after some wild brainstorming and tough negotiations, it was decided that Vampire would become the primary attraction. This year also saw another first for Netherworld. Doug Bradley, the actor famous for portraying Pinhead in the Hellraiser movies, visited the haunt, greeted guests, and signed autographs for an evening. These two things together led to a second, wildly successful year for Netherworld, and it was decided that, because of how popular they had become, Netherworld needed to move to a semi-permanent home. Thus, 1999 became a do-or-die year for the fledgling haunt. Netherworld moved to a location with a year-round lease located in the same center it had previously occupied, but in a much larger suite. This presented a new challenge. New firewalls, escapes, and doors had to be built and installed, and this left the haunt with a serious cash flow problem. It was succeed or go broke. Reflecting the worries of the approaching turn of the century, it was decided that this year's theme would be Apocalypse. And, thanks to the larger space, for the first time a second haunt was added. Netherworld 3D Haunted House, the first 3D haunted attraction in the Southeast United States, which would be sponsored by Chroma Depth Technology. The event again was a resounding success, and this enabled Netherworld to dive headfirst into the new century as a premier haunted attraction. The following year, in 2000, Netherworld used the theme of Primeval, a storyline based on time travel and prehistoric creatures. This would present the team with an opportunity to custom make almost all of their own props, costumes, and decorations, something that would certainly set them apart. But the Netherworld team still wasn't satisfied, so they had the crazy idea to not only put up two haunts in the same location, but also have a separate ticketed event at another location. Blood Feast would be a guided walkthrough of a medieval torture chamber featuring extremely gory props and incredibly twisted scares. And while both locations were successful, the added pressure of trying to manage a second separate location would push the Netherworld team to realize that, in the years to come, they needed to keep all attractions at one central location. 2001 was a very tough season for haunts, and Netherworld was no exception. The 9/11 attacks had rocked the nation and hit just as Halloween events were starting to open. Across the country, everyone's thoughts were on more important things than Halloween. Netherworld had, however, already expanded its marketing plans considerably, and this led to a slight growth in attendance in a year when most of the industry had experienced a major downturn. It seemed in late October that folks had developed a resolve to go out and enjoy life and not give in to depression over world events, so things began to look up. By the end of the 2001 season, Netherworld was once again successful and able to turn its thoughts to the future. Over the next several years, Netherworld continued its climb to the top of the haunt industry, incorporating many memorable themes such as Inner Sanctum, Dark Harvest, Spirits of the Dead, Abomination, and Cursed. In those years, Netherworld would also introduce several iconic characters that would become synonymous with the event: the Collector, Maximilian Colbert, and the Harvestman, who actually became a TV host, eventually winning a Telly Award. 2007 also had Netherworld featured on the Travel Channel as a top haunt. This would be the first year that would happen, but certainly not the last. 2009 would see the movie Zombieland filming inside of Netherworld, and members of the Netherworld crew participated in the film's production. Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 in 2009 also rented props from the event and used the haunted house staff while filming. By 2017, Netherworld had officially become a force in the haunt industry. That year, they were awarded the honor of Best Haunted House in America by HauntWorld.com, and this success would lead to a need to make Netherworld even bigger. After 20 years of scares and thrills, the Netherworld team had proved what they had set out to prove: that an original haunted attraction could become the premier haunt in the country. But they weren't done yet. Knowing that interest was still growing, crowds were bigger than ever, and that they were finally outgrowing their space in the Antique Center, Netherworld announced in 2016 that they would be moving their entire operation to Stone Mountain, Georgia. This new space would allow for a massive compound of haunted fun, including 3 new escape rooms. The new Netherworld would be situated on almost 10 acres and now had over 70,000 square feet of space in which to imagine, fabricate, and bring to life one of the most incredible haunted attractions ever created. In addition to the haunts and escape rooms, this complex would include a museum of monsters and movie props, a gift shop that's next to none in the haunt industry, an outdoor midway, an impressive amount of indoor queuing, and free parking. Netherworld was here to stay. As an aside, 2019 will see 2 completely new themes for Netherworld. Night of the Gorgon is a story of a cult trying to create an army of stone warriors to take over the world, and Cold Blooded will tell of prehistoric life forms having their DNA spliced with reptilian alien subjects. Both of these mazes sound absolutely stunning, and with the haunt season quickly approaching, audiences will soon be able to devour both. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Haunt Season. If you did, please click the subscribe and like buttons to stay up to date on all our newest content. And thank you so much for watching.